Okay, let's run.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks!
What are you?
Greetings and salutations. This is, and I quote, the weekly show where we introduce you to some of the best creators from all over the world, and we find out more about them by taking your questions. I am your host, Ryan of And I Quote Channel, and our guest on this episode is indie writer extraordinaire. He knows a thing or two about fantasy, adventure. One does not simply walk into Mordor. Or maybe some other properties. I'm not really sure. Please welcome Cal Logan to the stage. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Hi. Thanks for having me.
No, we're very happy to have you here, Cal. We're very happy to have you here, maybe watching or listening to this program right now. Do not forget to like and share this with your closest friends. If you're joining us live or what is known as a replay, thank you so much for doing so. If you have any questions for our guest this week, Cal Logan, let us know in those comments. Let us know in the chat. More than happy to take those as they come in. With that piece of business out of the way, Cal, what would you say are some of your favorite books or writers growing up?
So I grew up and started reading kind of like on Goosebumps and Animorphs. Goosebumps were huge in the 90s, so like everyone was reading them. That was probably like 80% of my reading when I was younger. And the first fantasy book I picked up, I actually have it on the shelf over here, was one of the Redwall books. And I actually picked up a book in the middle of the series, but that was what got me into fantasy. And then from there, I got into like R.A. Salvatore's like Rizzo books. And then a little bit after that, I discovered Grimdark and got into that.
Okay, interesting. I dig it. What would you say are some of your favorite movies, past or present?
Oof, I got a lot of them. I'm a big movie guy. So Lord of the Rings trilogy is my favorite trilogy of all time. But I'm also big into war movies. So like Black Hawk Down, Fury, Lone Survivor, Hacksaw Ridge, stuff like that. And then I also, of course, like medieval and historical epics. So stuff like Kingdom of Heaven, Last Samurai, Last of the Mohicans, movies like that.
Good choices. Have you seen the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven?
Oh, that's the only way to watch it.
Okay, because I was going to say.
It is the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's an excellent film. I think it's underrated too. It does get a whole lot of love out there. It came and went back, when it came out originally, and the theatrical cut was fine. But then years later, we got the director's cut on, I think it was Blu-ray. And I sat down and I watched it. I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't we see this originally or put this in theaters? I would have watched this.
Yeah, you have the studio to thank for that one. They didn't think audiences had the attention span for that last hour. So they cut out all the character development and all the stuff that actually makes the battles important.
He's right, That's a fair point. But yeah, Kingdom of Heaven is great. Plus the score is good too.
Yeah. That movie is pretty much a perfect movie in my opinion.
Wow. Okay.
Like hard 10 out of 10.
All right. I like it a lot. Flipping the script a little bit though. What would you say are some of your favorite TV series, past or present?
There's Breaking Bad, and then there's everything else. Also, like I was a big fan of The Walking Dead before it went on for too many seasons. I was a huge fan of Game of Thrones before they screwed up the ending. As far as shows that I think did a really great job all the way through, besides Breaking Bad, Succession is way up there for me, and Last Kingdom.
I haven't seen Last Kingdom though, so I can't really comment on that one. There's a few other ones you named I haven't seen, but Last Kingdom, what's that one about? Is that a period piece, I'm assuming?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like a historical drama set in kind of like 900 AD England, so about 200 years after the Vikings like first came to England, or like the Danes as they're called in the show. And so the main character he's English-born nobility. He gets captured in battle and like taken hostage as a kid, taken for ransom, and raised amongst the Danes as a child. So now he kind of has the foot in both worlds. And now as an adult, tensions boil over between the King of Wessex, Alfred, and the various Dane tribes or clans. And so he's kind of caught in the middle of the conflict. It's based on some books. It builds really slowly and smoothly, but it builds really well. It kind of just never takes a wrong step, And so over the 5 or 6 seasons of the show, it just grows so well and organically. And by the end, like everything is of significance. Everything has a ton of weight behind it, and there's a lot of like really good payoff.
Ah, okay. Slow burn. Certain slow burns work for me, but others, it's a
Yeah.
bit more difficult. Depends on the audience.
Yeah, there's still a lot of good action and moments in between, but like I don't think there's a moment as high, for example, as like the Red Wedding, right? Which is
Hmm.
like it's hard to top that. But they also stick the landing so hard and they never really drop the ball. So it's like way higher lows and slightly lower highs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no. It does make sense. It does make sense. So I have to check this out. Last Kingdom, strong name too. I don't mind that. What made you decide to become a writer?
I've always written just for fun. Even when I was like little, I would just like make up stories and stuff like that. So I've kind of always been drawn to it. And then I wrote my first book when I was 17, and it was really bad, and it wasn't even a fantasy book. It was just angsty teenage slop. And and then I didn't write anything seriously in college. I wrote some short stories here and there, but I just kind of kept up with it a little bit. And then when I got out of school, I decided to take a serious shot at it and actually like try to write a full length fantasy book.
Okay. Nice, nice, very nice. What would you say are some of the rewards about being a writer?
I enjoy the process of it, and I think that's its own reward. So I just released my first book last year. I would love to say that I'm raking in the cash, but I'm not quite there yet. So there's not a lot of external rewards, but I think that I find it enjoyable enough that like I like the time that I get to sit down and just put pen to paper, so to speak, and kind of clear my head.
Nothing wrong with that. We all need escapism in this life, folks.
Yeah.
Opposite side of the coin, though, what are some of the challenges about being a writer?
Uh, all of it, including the writing, including the writing.
Hmm.
So for me particularly, so I'm a personal trainer. I work basically a physical job, 10 to 11 hours a day, and I can't be in front of a computer. So I don't have a lot of time to write. And when I do, it's often a short break, maybe, 30, 45 minutes. So the scheduling and just the literal act of finding time to write is difficult, on top of the actual process. And it's also just kind of a lonely road. Like you have to do a lot on your own, before you get feedback from beta readers, right? And then you have to do more work on your own before you get to work with a great editor and cover artist and the other people who can kind of give it the final push when it comes to publishing. But for most of the process, it's just like a lonely, like plotting intensive process.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I can totally understand that, but hey, there are different writing groups out there. There's writing discords out there that if you join that, you can find your community, you can find your tribe, as one might say. So
Yeah.
that's always a possibility. Got to keep that in mind. Speaking of books, let's talk about this one here. So Shadow Bane, first of all, this is a badass cover. I'm going to say that right up front. That is a badass Mamma Jamma cover, as one might say. But what is it for someone who's not familiar with Shadow Bane? What exactly is it, and how did this come about?
So Shadowbane is a story about a pair of twins who are exiled demon hunters in a world that's modeled off of feudal Japan. And they are tasked with infiltrating and tracking down a cult that worships the demons as deities and is responsible for kind of bringing them back after the demons were thought to be defeated. While that's happening, they're caught between three warring kings, and so each of the kings is trying to look to get the twins on their side to use them for their advantage. So that's the basic premise. And as far as what inspired this and where it came from, it actually came from a nightmare I had. So I had this dream. Real quick, do you know what sleep paralysis is, or like incubus attacks?
I think I've heard of it, but I don't remember the exact definition of it. What exactly is it?
So basically, it's when you wake up, usually from a nightmare,
Mhm.
and part of your brain is still asleep and
Mhm.
part of you is awake.
Ah.
So you're actually paralyzed, but you can see. And because your brain is kind of trying to fill in the gaps, so you often end up seeing like a dark, shadowy figure or something like humanoid. You just your brain is filling in gaps because not everything's there. And so this happened to me, and it's really scary. And it happens to me a couple times a year. It has since I was a teenager. And once you're awake, I'm like, okay, I know what that was. That was fine. But I had a really intense one, and and it was a crazy like nightmare. And in the nightmare, we were being attacked by demons. So I woke up, I'm like freaking out for a second. And I start to settle back to sleep, and my dog then starts howling and barking and freaking out. And so I got up and checked the house because I thought someone was trying to break in or something. No one's in the house. I go back to bed. I'm like, okay, fine. Like we're all good. And then the dog does something. He's small. He's like a dachshund, so he's 13 pounds. He does something that he's never done before or since. He laid across my chest like this, and he's just staring a hole through the door. And he stayed like that for an hour. And so that freaked me out more than the nightmare did because my dog's never done that. I eventually got back to sleep, and I woke up the next day, and I just was like entertaining the idea of like, oh, like what if it's that whole dogs can sense, spirits and stuff like that kind of thing. And that was the initial seed, which then became like a guy and his dog hunting demons, which then turned into twins and their 800-pound pet tiger hunting demons in feudal Japan.
My goodness gracious. That's intense, man. That is definitely I'm sorry, but it's definitely intense. But thank you for sharing that with us. Don't get me wrong. Appreciate you sharing where the idea came from because that was the question that was on the table. And don't forget, this is and I quote. And make sure you like and share this video with your friends. If you have any questions for our guest founder Cal Logan, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. And if you're watching this live or what is known as a replay, thank you for doing that. Man, intense stuff. But hey, Shadow Bane's a great title too. Nothing wrong with that. What advice would you give? What advice would you give to aspiring writers out there?
You got to write first and foremost. I see. I'm in a lot of like writers groups on Facebook and stuff like that, and I'm the various subreddits for writing. And probably 70% of the posts are people worrying about small details that ultimately don't matter, or they want permission to write something like, "Hey, is it okay if I write this type of character with this or that?" And people are almost trying to like crowdsource ideas, or they dive too deep into world building and they don't actually write anything. And it's just paralysis by analysis. So you actually have to write, just get the words down. You can refine it later. And I would say like trust your gut and go with your own ideas. Because no one's gonna, even no matter how many people you ask for ideas and stuff like that, they're not gonna understand your vision. And I find that stuff like that is not always as helpful as you might think. And I think it's just a way to procrastinate writing. So just getting the words down, and then once you start to do that, just really work on honing your craft because it takes a long time. I was writing for 5 years before my first book got agented, and then he left the industry, and then I ended up writing Shadow Bane. So I was doing this for about 8 years before I published my first book.
Yeah, you're right. Definitely a long road, but it pays off. It does pay off. It just we all got to learn the ways of the Force sometime, right, folks? It just takes me. When 900 years, look as good, you will not. It's
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't take us 900 years like it did for Yoda, but still, it's like, come on, man.
Yeah, it is one of those things where a lot of times, and I did this, where I expected to be good within the first year or two, and I wasn't. And it's like, well, look back at anything else I've done, like playing soccer or wrestling, like I wasn't good in that first year or two. Like it takes a lot of practice, and I think it takes more practice than most people think, because we write just like casually day to day, writing emails and stuff like that, and we've all written stuff for school, but writing a full length, fictional novel it's a different beast. And just because we might be proficient at writing in one context doesn't mean we're proficient at writing in another. And so really trying to study the intricacies of how to write a novel I think it's really important.
100%. Couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm still finding my footing as well. I only started writing in the last number of months, and I got my short story published in an anthology earlier this summer. It was
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Yeah. Because the funny thing is, 5 years ago, we had this little thing called a lockdown, and I went to some virtual workshops through my local library, which, by the way, folks, support your local libraries when you can. There's a lot of great resources available to you out there, and a lot of them are for free. So you might want to look into that, folks. So I did the workshops, and we went over like characters and settings and how to put together your storyline and all that kind of stuff. And I took notes. They had, what do you call PowerPoint slides during the virtual programming. And then we said, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over this stuff for the first half hour, 40 minutes. And then I want you to write for an hour, just straight, just write for an hour, whatever it is, just write. And we did. And then we would come back and we would share what we have written, whether it's through sharing our screen or we would read it out loud to everybody in the Zoom call, because these were Zoom calls, I believe, at the time. And they said, hey, this is actually really good. I like your character. I like where it's going. Like, you just got to work on this, that, and the other. I said, oh, really? Okay. I mean, this is my first try at doing this, really. So this was kind of, I didn't really know what to expect. So that became a short story, and then that got finished, and it was a Western, and it ended on a cliffhanger. So I backed myself into a corner. I was like, darn it, I wanted this to be one and done, Cal, one and done. But it was a cliffhanger. And then 5 years later, I started watching this or listening to this podcast on social media. It's called the Men's Adventure Fiction Podcast, this is their logo right here. You can find them on Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you download your podcast, you can find them there. Nate and Luke host the show, and they were talking about the men's adventure fiction genre. And they said, hey, guys, we're starting up a Discord. If anyone wants to jump in and, talk about their ideas, if they want tips or support, whatever it is. It's basically like a men's adventure fiction writers Discord is what it's fully known as. I know it's a mouthful. And I joined it, and I started talking to all these writers, and it got my wheels turning. It got the creative juices flowing again, if you know what I mean. And they were saying, hey, we're looking for submissions for this Western anthology. Here's what we're looking for. Here's what the deadline is. Email it to us at this address. We'll get back to you. And I wrote it, and then I submitted it, and they're like, hey, your story made it through the first round. We're still going through submissions right now, but we'll get back to you, and we'll let you know if you made the final cut or not. And then lo and behold, Cal, it made the final cut, and it ended up being in the anthology that has 16 different writers with 15 different stories.
Wait, 16 writers, 15 stories?
Yeah, because one of the stories was written by a brother duo.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the stories was written by brothers, a set of brothers. So
okay.
I know it may sound a bit off-put, but yeah, no, that's the real truth. And so now my story's in there, and now that I know that I'm published, and that gave me a boost of confidence. Like, okay, now I know I can do this. I am capable of doing it, and now I just got to keep pushing. But at the same time, when you're working 2 jobs, 40 plus hours a week, and then you got this on the weekends, which, by the way, folks, I love what I do when it comes to podcasting. I absolutely love what I do. It takes away all the time. So, you got to find that. I guess you got to find that. What am I trying to say here? You got to find like a window, or you got to find like a habit that you can get into and just stick to it, I guess, if that makes sense. So, I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to make this, because this show's about Cal Logan, not about me. But, this has been, this is what my writer's journey has been since I started.
I get what you're saying, absolutely, though. So one of the things I struggle with is the time balance between writing and marketing, and I probably don't market as much as I should, and that's because I do prioritize the writing with the limited free time that I have, and unfortunately, my writing process is just really time intensive, and there's a lot of research required because I'm writing about feudal Japan, and I'm not an expert on it. I certainly know a lot more now than I did before, but everything from that to just I'm obsessive about like my language and line edits. Like I really think about like every word I put down, and so I go over stuff like 5 times, and that doesn't leave a lot of time for the socials. So I'm on like Twitter and Instagram. But some people are on like, they have a Substack, they have a TikTok, as and I'm leaving out like 2 other social media sites that I can't think of off the top of my head, but they're on like 6 different things, and they're posting daily, and that's and that's why they sell a ton of books. They're incredible marketers. But that's one of the things I personally struggle with, is that the amount of labor I put into the actual writing aspect leaves me with very limited time with marketing social media. So I have to like pick my shots. And it's probably the same reason I don't participate in a lot of like Discords or like writers groups, beyond like browsing around and responding to an occasional comment. Because we don't have so much time in the day,
Yeah, honestly, I'm sorry to say this, folks, but the older we get, the less time we have. It seems like time is going. You see that? You see that right here? It's just ticking away faster and faster. I'm like, what? Stop time. Can we get a DeLorean and go back in time to something? I mean, come on.
Was like the time dilation chamber that they use in Dragon Ball Z to train. I've watched this in like 25 years, but
for a minute,
they at some point they freeze time to allow someone to get like 100 years worth of training in a week. I wish I had that, but for writing.
Can you and I do that? Can I make that happen? That would be great.
Yeah.
I would love that.
I don't know. We're smart guys. Maybe if we put our heads together, we can invent that, and then and then we'll just take turns using it, crank out a couple books.
Mm-hmm. I would love that, actually, to be honest. I mean, I think we could crank out more of Shadow Bane and that storyline. I can crank out more anthologies of short stories that I like to write, because one of the things that I've been told over the years is that the best place to start is to write short stories, because then you get to build up your writing repertoire, you get to build an audience a little bit, and then once you get a lot more experience under your belt, then you feel that instinct. It's like, maybe I can try writing a novella or an actual like 20,000, 40,000 word story, right? So it just
Do you
comes
want to
with
write a
time.
novel at some point?
For me, what I like to see, this is the funny thing. I read all these great books by so many different writers, whether they're classic writers, from old or some of the modern day, and I really like what they do, but I don't know if I can see myself writing a book, an actual like full length novel. Would it be great? Yes, absolutely. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for anybody, but I'm gonna say no right now, but that doesn't mean I won't be open to it in the future. I just want to stick to writing short stories and putting out short story anthologies, so I can give my audience an idea of who I am as a writer and as a person, and be like, hey, I like these genres, but if you don't like these genres, I have this over here where I dive into another set of genres, right? Because I like men's adventure fiction, I like pulp fiction type stories, I like crime, I like action adventure stories, to be honest with you, because I grew up on Indiana Jones and National Treasure and all that kind of stuff. So I like globe-trotting adventure type stuff, a little bit like James Bond too, because I grew up on the Bond films too. So I like to combine that, or like dive into that. Like, heck, say, I haven't fully. I'm in the process of editing the story, but I put a lot of the editing on the back burner because I've been so busy with the X amount of the full-time job, the part-time job, and all these other commitments that I have, and it dives into sword and sorcery. And my friends are like, hey, this is actually good. I mean, you just have to edit it. And I've had friends give me critiques and honest feedback about like, this is what you need to fix. This is what you could look into, blah, blah, blah. It's up to you whether you want to do it or not. And the other thing they've said to me is, dude, this story is so good. You can write a spin-off and a history about what the sword is and where it originally came from. Because the story that I'm in the process of editing is about a boy, a teenage boy, who finds this sword in the woods in the middle of the night, and only he could see and hear it crashing into the ground one night as he was walking home from hanging out with friends. And it's called One with the Sword. It's called One with the Sword. And my friends are like, yeah, go ahead.
You haven't explained the origin of the sword in this short story?
I haven't explained the origin of the sword in the short story. I'm just kind of like giving the audience an idea of this is some of the abilities that the sword has, and this is also what the wielder of it can do. But then my friends were like, hey, this is really good. You may want to think about doing like a spin-off at some point and explaining the history of because the sword itself, everyone was telling me, dude, this is really intriguing stuff.
Yeah, it's nice when like an original, like a solid premise, then you start to work on it, and then there's, because you can't explain everything in every single thing you write, right? Like you always have to at some point stop giving information, or the thing becomes just way too bloated. And then there's a time when, and there's a part sometimes when you're like, wait a minute, this is actually really interesting. Like I could do something else related to this in a separate work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's why like prequel novellas are becoming, or just novellas in general, are becoming really popular in the indie circle. And it's because it allows people to kind of like grow like their universe and have multiple entries in one series without it having to be a full length novel, and without having to pad something out. So like one of my buddies wrote, he has a novel called Whispers of the Storm, and then he released a prequel novella alongside that, and it explains, like, you see the main character of the novel as an antagonist in the novella, because it's written from the point of view of a faction that's going to war against this guy's faction. And I think it was like a really cool way to do that.
Fascinating. You said it was called Whispers in the Dark?
Whispers of the Storm.
Or Whispers of the Storm. Sorry. That sounds cool. I like that title. Sometimes it's title.
I was going to say, it's also just a badass title.
That's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes it's a title that grabs me, and then when you see the cover, depending on who it is, of course, the cover could be great, or the cover could, because, even though it goes back to the original saying, never judge a book by its cover, we do it anyway, because if the cover is not going to grab me, I'm not going to, it doesn't interest me to read your book if the cover doesn't look at least decently badass. Now, granted, Shadow Bane, badass cover. And, you said Whispers in the Storm. Whispers in the Storm, that sounds awesome. So I gotta pick up a copy of this. Is that Whispers in the Story? Is that on Amazon?
Yeah,
All right, I have to look that up for sure. Write this down,
yeah.
folks. Write this
Check it
down.
out.
And don't, yeah, don't
You might
forget.
like it.
Okay, all right, I can dig it, man. And don't forget, this is, and I quote, the most educational show known to man. Don't forget to like, share this. If you have any questions for our guest of honor, Cal Logan, let us know in the comments, let us know in the chat. What has been your experience like, been going to events or book festivals or book signings, selling Shadow Bane, or letting people in on what your storylines are and that kind of thing? What's your experience been like, maybe even at conventions? Have you had any experience in that yet?
So I actually haven't. I really want to. I'd like to get more than one book under my belt, just so I have a little bit more, a little bit more inventory to offer. Um, that's like it's a lot easier. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's a lot easier to sell books when you have like 2 books or 3 books as opposed to just one. And some of the conventions I've looked at have entry fees that I don't think would justify me like buying it as like buying like a vendor application until I'm confident that I have like enough material to make it financially worthwhile.
Understandable. Understand. I've actually not a lot, but a few people have said on social media channels that the best thing for writers, in fact, to do is to wait until you get 3 books on your belt and then start doing events. So you're not the first person to mention this kind of advice or statement. So I've heard it from
Yeah.
a few people on the social media outlets. Like, well, if you have 3 books, you get more people options. If you get 4 books, it's even better. It's just, yeah. And that's the reason I'm planning on tabling next year, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen, because I got to get a lot more stories under my belt. I need to put out anthologies, or at least 2 or 3 anthologies, I would say, of short stories, if I'm saying that right. So
Yeah.
have to wait and see. Hopefully the odds are ever in our favor.
Yeah. It just got to grind away at it, and like the other indie authors that I talk to, occasionally you get someone whose debut just smashes, but that's by far the exception. Usually they're 3, 4, 5 books deep before they start to like generate some serious momentum. So I'm just kind of trying to keep my head down and work at it.
No, I can dig it. Who is an author, living or dead, you would love to sit down and just pick their brain about writing and stuff?
I'll go with my favorite author, who I'm glad is still alive because we still get to get his read his work. But Joe Abercrombie, you can see his shelf over my shoulder here, and yeah, he's definitely my favorite author. And I've seen his interviews, and he's just a super like witty, funny, down to earth guy. I think that he'd be really fun just to have a beer, or considering that he's English, 12 with. So he strikes me as a guy who can put him down.
Oh, okay. And for someone who's not familiar with Mr. Abercrombie, he is famous for writing what series?
The First Law is his big series. There's 9 books in that series. It's broken into 3 trilogies, and he's known as Lord Grimdark, which is like a semi-ironic thing because Grimdark was kind of a newer genre that he just started writing in, and he kind of got crowned like the king of it just by virtue of him being one of the earliest guys in the genre as it got popularized, if that makes sense. Kind of like how like Nirvana made grunge music big, even though the grunge roots were still around before that, obviously. So it's very, very dark, very like cynical and humorous, very selfish characters, a very bleak and unforgiving world, and there's just this incredible like irony and like wit with everything he writes, which makes the really dark, brutal moments have there's moments of like levity, and just very, very dark humor, basically, alongside a storyline filled with like selfish, flawed characters who are just incredible to watch go on their journeys.
Okay. All right. That's the best. I said fascinating. It's fascinating. That's the best way I can put it. Sorry, I'm pulling a Spock on you from Star Trek because that's what he was known for, is saying the word fascinating. Yeah.
See, I didn't. I'm not a Star Trek guy, so I didn't catch it.
Okay. No. It's all right. It's all right. Did you grow up on Star Wars?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite Star Wars movie? Is it Empire, like everybody else, or is it something that's a bit more outside the norm?
So my favorite, the one I watch the most and enjoy the most, is Revenge of the Sith. But I have to admit, Empire's a better movie. Like, it's like I know that like I might know that like chicken, broccoli, and rice is better for me, but like I enjoy pizza more. And I, although in that case, I stick with the former, not the latter. Uh, but yeah, like Empire's one that I'm like, okay, this is objectively a better movie, but I find myself reaching for Revenge of the Sith more often.
That's cool. That's cool. Hey, there's plenty of prequelists or fans of the prequels out there. Apparently, they've gained a new appreciation in the last couple of years.
I think
So,
that the Disney trilogy doing what they
yeah.
did made it was like we didn't know what we had until we lost it.
Well, they didn't have a plan during that sequel trilogy. You can easily tell. The first film, in my opinion, anyway, this is just my opinion. Force Awakens is great, and then Rogue One is the best, in my opinion. It's the best prequel we ever
Rogue
got.
One is excellent, yeah.
Rogue One is freaking awesome. And then as soon as that movie was over, and then we go into Last Jedi and Solo and Rise of Skywalker, I'm like, what the heck were these people doing?
Yeah. So I mean, to your point, like they didn't plan the trilogy, and
no, they didn't.
I liked Force Awakens. I think it set up a lot of interesting questions, and then none of those questions got answered. And it comes out that he's like, well, we wanted to give each director just their own, their own vision and let them run free with it. I'm like, man, you didn't have a storyline to run through all three movies. Like at that point, you might as well just make a bunch of standalones. It felt like in like elementary school, they would have you pair up with like 3 or 4 people, and you'd all write a paragraph of a story, right? And of course, it would turn out shitty because it was 4 different people not communicating, and also we were in 3rd or 4th grade. This felt like a $200 million version of that.
Wow. Yeah, that's very true. That's a great example too. What we've got here is failure to communicate. So, which is so true. Which is so true. They really, what do you call it? They messed up with the last couple of films, and now I'm still looking forward to Mandalorian and Grogu next year because I love Mandalorian. I love the character. I love the show. The trailer didn't really wow me, though, even though Sigourney Weaver, apparently, who's been sci-fi royalty for the last 50 years, is going to be a part of this movie, Mandalorian and Grogu. I don't know if you heard that news or not, but Sigourney Weaver is going to be in it. And she's in the trailer, but all she does is just keep a sack of cookies away from Grogu. And I'm like, okay, what are you doing here? What's your story? I don't know what it is. Because all this trailer was moving images with no dialogue, barely any dialogue. I mean, granted, teasers are supposed to do that, but at the same time, I'm like, give me something. Yeah. You didn't give me anything.
I hope it's not just using like an awesome actor just to bait people into watching it. Like was like the Jurassic Park movie where they said that Laura Dern and Sam Neill and Jeff Goldblum were all coming back, and they were in one scene. So I hope it's not that. Hopefully that they give her a substantial role.
What a mess! Wow, yeah, that was Jurassic World Dominion. I want to say was when all 3 of them came back. So yeah. They've made some really bad calls, but yeah, no. And I don't know if anyone heard the news or not. I'm sure for diehard Star Wars fans, you know this, but Star Wars is re-releasing Revenge of the Sith novelization this month with a exclusive like cover sleeve and some new artwork on the cover of the book and how the pages look. So get ready, it's coming. It's coming on the 14th, I believe.
Nice. I've actually not read any of the Star Wars novels. I'm strictly a movie guy.
Okay, fair enough.
I feel like if I got into the like all the like extended canon, I would like drown.
Legends.
Yeah.
At some Legends, yeah.
Is that the short film anthology?
Or which one?
Star Wars Legends.
Well, it's no the short story form is the animated series, like Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Sith. That's on Disney Plus. As far as the books go, there's the new canon, and then the canon that's the old canon is called Star Wars Legends. Those
okay, gotcha.
Called.
Okay,
yeah, those, and they have a label on it too. It'll say Star Wars Legends, which means it's part of the expanded universe, but it's not canon.
But it doesn't count anymore. Yeah,
and I'm like, Disney. Here's the thing: just because you bought a property, and I'm reading a book that says Star Wars Legends on it, I don't care if it's canon or not. A story is a story. I don't care if it's part of it or not, because at the end of the day, the reader makes up their mind on whether they enjoyed it or not. So, I mean, I'm just saying, I got Heir to the Empire trilogy on my bookshelf here, written by Timothy Zahn, who's one of the most well-respected and celebrated writers in Star Wars history. So, and I asked him, I said, Timothy, what is a piece of advice you would give to every writer out there, or every aspiring writer out there, more specifically? And he looks me right in the eye and he says, just keep at it. Just keep writing. Just keep writing. That is the best thing I can say. And I tattooed in my brain. And then he signed my books too, which is cool. Yeah, he
That's
was a
awesome.
nice feller. He was a nice feller. We got a selfie together. It's on our social media. Check it out at And I Quote channel. I've met a few of the Star Wars writers over the years. I've met some of the actors from the voice actors from Rebels, voice actors from Clone Wars. Was it Brian Herring, who was the puppeteer for BB-8 in the sequel trilogy, more specifically?
Mhm.
He was a nice feller too. I did tell him though, because we had a bit of a discussion. He's like, "Hey, just so you know, I'd like," because he asked me, he's like, "Well, what do you think about the new series of films so far?" Because some of the other films had not come out yet. And I said, "I love Force Awakens. I love Rogue One. I will defend those two movies to my dying day." But I didn't really like Last Jedi, Brian. I didn't really like it. And he respected my opinion though. He wasn't like, talking down to me or saying, "Oh, you're wrong. You're wrong." Da, 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 da. He was just like, "Well, they got this idea for this, that, and it was a great conversation." It was just at the end of the day, I was like, "Yeah, I don't like Last Jedi. It's not happening." It's not happening.
I mean, and if you're, if you're associated with the film, but like you're not the guy who wrote it, like you might very well have issues with it. You might not like it, but you're still not going to trash it because it was a thing that you professionally worked on, right? So like, like I think it's okay
Mhm.
for people like who work on a film or something too. Like they don't have to love it just because they worked on it. Like if you remember when they had the Game of Thrones interviews and they asked Emilia Clarke like, "What do you think about the final season?" And she's like, and you can tell she can't. Yeah, she can't say anything bad about it, but you could tell that she just wasn't particularly a fan.
Man, okay. I didn't see that cringe interview featuring her, but the other thing is, the only thing I know, one of the few things I remember, because I've only seen the Red Wedding sequence from Game of Thrones. I've never actually watched the show. I'm sorry to say,
Oh,
Cal.
okay.
Never actually seen the show, but I've seen the Red Wedding. A lot of people died that day. That was a great wedding. No, it wasn't. But other than that, that's my only experience with Game of Thrones. And the only other thing I know Emilia Clarke from, actually, I know her from a couple of things. She's done some other movies outside of, Game of Thrones and her TV work. But what was it called? You Before Me, I think was one of the movies she was in. And then another one I remember her as, she was a younger version of Sarah Connor in Terminator Jenny Smith, also known as Terminator Genesis, if you know what I'm saying. So I'm sorry, Amelia. I've watched a few of your pieces of work, but I don't know you all that well. But if I saw you on the street, I would still love to talk to you because Amelia Clarke is, yes, she's quite beautiful. And I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I'm sorry. Did we get off the rails here? Probably. But once again, this is And I Quote with the guest of honor, Cal Logan. Don't forget to like and share. If you have any questions, let us know in those comments. Where do you see indie writing and indie publishing going in the next 5 to 10 years, Cal? Do you see it growing and taking over the market to a certain extent, or do you see it kind of shrinking away a little bit?
It's absolutely going to grow. I don't know if it's going to, let's say, like outpace traditional publishing, just because the big four are, they're absolute like titans, right? They just have so many like resources at their disposal that they can, and they're so entrenched in the industry. I don't know if the indie industry as a whole is going to overtake it, but indie books are getting better and better year over year, right? Like there used to be this stigma around self-publishing, and there probably is to some extent. I don't see it because I'm obviously in the industry, but I'm sure like if you ask some people on the street, they still think that a self-published book is generally going to be worse than a traditionally published book. And I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't agree with that. And I think most people can at least admit that the gap is closing if they think there's a gap, because it's just becoming so much more accessible, and the standards for like a good book are, or at least a good indie book are rising. You want to have stuff that's indistinguishable from a book that came out of Hatchatter or Macmillan. So I think that it's definitely going to continue to grow and compete with traditionally published books, even if it doesn't overtake them.
There you go. We're only going to grow. Unlimited power. Sorry, that's a Palpatine line for you.
And on Amazon, the thing is too, like they don't distinguish between a book being self-published or not. So there are definitely consumers out there who don't care if a book is traditionally published or independently published, as long as it's in their minds, as long as it's good. And when an indie book does reach certain amounts of traction and just kind of enters like the mainstream conversation, for example, like Of Blood and Fire, or like the Bound and Broken series by Ryan Cahill, that's one that has kind of reached critical mass. And even though it's self-published, like no one cares. And actually, I think he actually just got a trad deal because he was having so much success as an indie author. But that's one where he's like selling, top ranking in fantasy, like selling, or very highly ranked, selling left and right. And so when people are searching for like, classic fantasy books, his book comes up and it has a million good reviews, and at that point, like, they don't care whether or not it's traditionally published or not; they're just going to buy it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, books are everywhere. Amazon's got so many of them, and 9 times out of 10, the reader, the audience, right? They don't read where it came from, who published it, where the publisher's located. They just want a great story. That's all it
Yep.
is. I mean, it's kind of like that movie I don't know if you're familiar with this one or not when we were kids. It's kind of like when you open a book and you feel like you're a part of the book, it becomes a never-ending type of story.
I have not seen that.
Oh, dude, come on. You're a
I know.
fantasy guy. This is fantasy adventure I just gave you.
I know, man. I have some critical gaps in my acumen.
Man, we got to fix this, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, help me out here. Yeah, Cal, you guys see Neverending Story, bro. That is like one of the core. That's one of the pillars of fantasy adventure filmmaking.
Yeah, I just watched The Godfather for the first time like 3 or 4 years ago. So
Did
that's
you?
I'm playing some catch up
What'd you think?
on some of the classics. I
Did
enjoyed
you
it.
like the movie?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
one of the, like, there are some movies that fall into a category of like I liked it, didn't love it, but I can completely see like why other people love it, and I can respect it for like the technical aspects and the skill that goes into it.
Yeah.
Does
See,
that
for
make
me,
sense?
I watched The Godfather and I found it boring.
So at times my attention span was wavering, which is why I would say like I liked it but didn't love it. But
Yeah.
it was still I still think it was like it's a well written story,
Mhm.
right? And I can appreciate that.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, I can certainly understand that point of view. There you go. But I totally get it. I totally get it. Well, if you ever decide to jump into, and I know this is a very deep rabbit hole, I understand that. But if you ever decide to jump into the Star Wars novels, let me know, because I got some titles that are fantastic standalone stories. You don't have to read the entire series; they're standalone stories.
All right.
Yeah. So have my people call
Thank
you people. We'll set up an appointment. We'll set up an appointment for you at Star Wars Fans Anonymous. I've just throwing it out there. Favorite character in Star Wars? Who's your favorite character?
Mm. He did dirty, but I'm gonna go with Mace Windu.
Yeah, gets his hand chopped off, gets thrown out of a
Yeah.
window. And Sam Jackson's been saying for years, you didn't see the body, so Mace Windu isn't dead. No, he's dead. He's definitely
Yeah.
dead, but whatever.
Yeah. I just I don't know. I like the lore behind him, how he learned like dark side fighting techniques and integrated them with like Jedi fighting techniques. And that's why his lightsaber is purple, and that's why he's so fearsome in combat. So I enjoy that lore. I've always kind of been a sucker for the like a good guy like using evil's own weapons against them kind of thing. Like also, for example, if you I don't know if you ever played Warcraft 3, but there's a character type called Demon Hunter, and they basically like ritually blind themselves and use demonic magic to fight demons. So it's I've always liked that archetype,
Oh,
or
okay.
that trope, so to speak.
Yeah.
Fighting fire with fire.
There you go. Fighting fire with fire. I totally dig it. Yeah, Sam Jackson. Yeah, they didn't treat him too well in that series. He barely got any screen time, to be honest. But hey, I will say this: it's one of the worst movies in cinematic history, at least in my opinion. Sorry, I'm gonna get on the prequelists' bad side here. But Attack of the Clones, where he shows up on Geonosis with the other army of Jedi, and they're fighting along with Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme in that arena.
Yeah,
That was.
that
Like,
scene is cool.
that scene is just, I mean, come on. It's literally like 7 samurai against like 500 soldiers. You know what I mean? Like it's just that scene alone. And then when the clones come in and swoop in with Yoda at the very tail end of that sequence there, Cal, that was fun. That was good. I will give them that. But other
Unfortunately,
than the whole film, is a piece of hot garbage.
The hour and a half before is rough.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah, it's bad. But when he shows up, puts it to what's his face, Jango Fett's throat, this party's over. Like, it's just, come on, man. You know that it's about, in the words of Kevin Hart, it's about to go down.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to go down, man. It's about to go down. So that was good stuff. And it was kind of, it was kind of cool that Christopher Lee is known for two of the biggest franchises of all time. He plays Count Dooku in Star Wars, and he plays Saruman in Lord of the Rings. So
yeah, that guy was an icon. Like, just I know he's in another movie or two that, like, I mean, he's in a ton of movies. He's in another movie or two that I really enjoy. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but every time he's on the screen, he just commands the scene.
he definitely does. He definitely does. I'm not gonna argue that. I mean, when he looks up at Obi-Wan and Anakin, I've been looking forward to this. It's just like, okay, looking for a fight there, old man. All right, let's see what you got, son.
He kills William Wallace. He's the magistrate in Braveheart who oversees his execution.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's him.
I did not know that. Free. It's sorry. That's going into the Wayback Machine, ladies and gentlemen. That is the Wayback Machine. They may take our lives, but they will never take our freedom. It's just, I'm just throwing that out there, Cal. I'm just throwing it out there.
That's like a once yearly watch for me as well.
Is it?
Yeah, maybe every other, but yeah, that's a movie that I kind of grew up on. Like, my dad was big into it, and so I got it. Saw it for the first time when I was like 9. And I was like, "Whoa! Like, this is getting pretty crazy here, Dad. Like, you sure I'm allowed to watch this?"
Probably not, but he liked to watch it anyway. It's all good, man. It's all good. We all experience movies at different ages in different ways. I was probably too young to watch certain PG movies that should have been rated R. To be perfectly honest with you.
Like Jaws, like that.
Yeah.
That was a day ruiner.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah. I forgot about that they used to not have a PG-13 movie rating before a certain year.
I think it was 84, 83. They started instating it when Temple of Doom was coming out. Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom. If I remember correctly. Anybody else remember that? Feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was like 83, 84 when the PG-13 rating was instated into the MPAA, just so you're aware, Cal.
Yeah. So. That was a good call. That was well, allow people to use a little bit better discretion.
Viewer discretion advised. Did you watch Jaws this year for its 50th anniversary?
I did not.
What are we going to do with this young man known as Cal Logan? You're going to need a bigger boat, brother. But
I mean, I've seen that movie many a good time.
Okay.
Just didn't make the trip for the 50 year.
It's all good. It's all good. So, I mean, you say yourself, you've seen it enough. Do you think we'll ever get Jaws 19, directed by Max Spielberg, where the shark comes out in 3D and tries to bite off one's head, and then you say to yourself, shark still looks fake?
I hope so. I want all the Jaws movies.
I'd like to see Jaws 19, directed by Max Spielberg. I want to see that movie because they hinted at it in that little indie film, Back to the Future Part 2. Marty's walking through town, sees the Jaws logo on the Cineplex, and the shark comes out. The 3D shark comes out, tries to come. Marty's actually scared. You know what? And then at the end of that sequence, he says, "Shark still looks fake."
I think it looked the most realistic in the first movie.
I know, right? And then on the marquee in Part 2, it says, "Now this time it's really, 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 really personal."
It's like at the end of the 22 Jump Street movie, they have like the fake trailers for like 23 through like 31 Jump Street. Same thing.
Oh yeah.
And the premise is it's just like an end credit montage, and it gets more and more absurd.
Oh, that is something else. That is something else. What is one book that belongs on everyone's bookshelf that is not Shadow Bane?
All right. I'll say the cop-out answer is anything by Joe Abercrombie because he's my favorite author. But I'll throw out an indie gem that is fairly popular in the indie community, but if you don't read a lot of indie stuff, you might not know about it. It is called The Sword of Kaigan. Let me grab it for a second, actually.
Yeah, sure. No problem. No worries. Lord knows we got plenty of different titles and books and things of that nature to put on this show, as known as show and tell.
So this book, there we go, which is actually the first indie book that I ever read, and it blew me away. It's a standalone, so no expectations of a lengthy series. It's a one and done, and it's still one of my favorite books of all time. Definitely like in my top 5. It was incredible. It's set in kind of like a Japanese esque world. It's set in like the modern day, but it's like a clan that has a very traditional lifestyle, and they're the kind of like guardians against a rival kingdom, and basically there are some secrets associated with their role in society, and the main character's son begins to ask questions, and so it's kind of one of those like everything you thought you knew might turn out to be not true, and their faith in this like system that their clan has defended for like generations starts to be shaken right on the advent of like a massive war. That's the basic premise.
Ooh, wow, that is some interesting stuff. Great cover, by the way. It's a very intriguing cover. Like the bit of the storyline, and also there's the slogan on the front of the book where it says, "Better to die sharp in war than rust through a time of peace." Wow, that's gonna hit you hard right there. And according to our research here, it says on Amazon it's best of book talk. My goodness. Woo.
Probably. I mean, it's an incredible book. It also won SPFBO, which is self-published fantasy book off. I want to say it was 2018, maybe 2019. That's what made me want to read it. But for that contest, they picked 300 books, and that was the winner.
That's a lot of books.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And yeah. I mean, it's awesome. Like, and I think it's even creative from a pacing point. Like, I don't want to give too much away, but the way that the big battles and stuff are structured, it kind of like comes at unexpected times, and there's one particular action sequence which it's just like the gift that keeps on giving. Like you think it's going to be over, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just surprising in so many ways. And there's like a really strong emotional core to it.
Wow. All right. Well, it looks cool to me. We're definitely going to be adding it to our Amazon list, folks. So check it out. It is available in ebook. I think there's an audiobook available and a paperback. So
yeah, it's phenomenal. I'll shill for that book all day.
All right. Oh, hey, we love hearing about book recommendations or other titles that maybe readers are not aware of that they may want to check out. So hey, we appreciate all the options we can possibly muster. The bigger the menu, the more options we have, and when you have it your way, Cal, it just tastes better. See what I did there? There you go. Throwing it out there, folks. Yeah, we're catching on. We're catching on. We're catching on. Catching on.
I catch like 1 out of every 6 references. Like I'm really sharp.
Okay. No, it's fine. It's all good. You said it yourself. There's a few gaps in your movieology studies that you need to fill in. Never-ending freaking story is certainly one of them. Come on. But anyway, hey, you've covered you've covered the Lord of the Rings and a few of the others that you mentioned, right? I mean, you said Last Samurai, which I don't hear people mention that film very often. That film is underrated too.
It was awesome.
TC legend Tom Cruise.
My wife makes fun of me for like, I'll be like, I want to watch a movie. She'll be like, do you mean you want to watch something new, or do you want to like rewatch one of your favorite movies for the 30th time?
Oh boy.
Yeah, she's got a point. But she gets me off my like top 20 favorite list, and she'll get me to watch new stuff.
All right. Well, hey, if you're ever looking for more movie recommendations, feel free to check out our movie watch-alongs that we do on Friday nights at 7 o'clock Eastern time, where we celebrate a movie that turns a certain age every year. So we do a different movie every week. Yeah, we just did Commando from Schwarzenegger that turned 40 this year. Next week, we're going to be celebrating 35 years of Predator 2, starring Danny Glover. And then the week after that, we do the follow-up to that film, which is Predators with Adrian Brody, that came out in 2010, which turns, I want to say it's 15. So, yeah, it's going to be a very spooky action horror themed month. There are other things that go bump in the night, Cal Logan, and we are the ones who bump back. So,
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
That was actually Hellboy.
Damn it.
That was William. That was, I know it sounds like it's from the other one, but it's actually Hellboy.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, it was John Hurt. John Hurt's character says, welcome to the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense. And then in the trailer, he actually says it. He says, "There are things that go bump in the night, Agent
I
Mine."
remember the trailer. I misplaced the movie.
It's okay. It's okay. And we are the ones who bump back. See, there you go.
Great line.
It is a great line. It is a great line. Have you seen the Hellboy movies with Ron Perlman?
Saw the first one.
Okay. The second one is actually better.
Makes it more egregious that I didn't that I misattributed the quote.
It's okay. It's all right. Hey, you got plenty of credibility. You just gave us like a couple of great, by the way, book recommendations for myself and the listener or viewer of this program to check out. So there is that. There is that. Support your local libraries. Check them out. Treat yourself. Cal, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for being a part of this episode of And I Quote. Thank you for being here and sharing more about Shadow Bane and everything you got going on. So if someone wants to know more about you or purchase a copy of Shadow Bane, where can they follow you?
Absolutely. So Shadow Bane is available in all formats except for audiobook on Amazon. There is an audiobook coming up, but we'll talk about that in a second. So it's available on Amazon in paperback, hardcover, and ebook. There are jacketed hardcovers available on my website, callogan.com, and I'm also on Instagram and Twitter. So I assume we can link my socials in the comments or with the video here. But find me on there, say hello. That's where to find me.
Great stuff. And by the way, folks, if you take a look at that QR code that's at the top right-hand corner of your screen, that is a QR code that will take you to Cal Logan's website where you can check out his book, the stories, everything he's got going on. Purchase a copy of Shadow Bane. You might enjoy it. It's fantasy adventure, and it gets very gritty and dark. So
that it does.
Yeah, it definitely gets gritty and dark. Just saying. But feel free to scan that QR code with your mobile device or your phone. It'll take you to the links there. And also the links are located in the description of this episode of And I Quote. So you can also check them out there. Cal, thank you for being here. I'm going to talk to you here again momentarily. So stick around, as Arnold would say. My name is Ryan of And I Quote channel. Follow me across all forms of social media simply at where am I pointing to? Where is it? There it is, at And I Quote channel. That's where you can catch us on Facebook. Instagram, we're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, which is our primary source because that's where all our videos and episodes of our podcast land or end up, I should say. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Do not forget to check out some wonderful friends of ours. And hey, I mentioned it earlier. We'll go over it once more here. Wolf of the West is the short story that I wrote for the Western Tales Volume 1 anthology, published by Veritas Entertainment. This is the cover of the book. In the description below, you can find a link to where you can purchase a copy in ebook, paperback, or hardcover of Western Tales Volume 1, featuring 16 writers and 15 different stories, which includes my story, Wolf of the West. These are straight up Westerns. So if you're into that sort of thing, do yourself a favor. Saddle up and check out Wolf of the West among the other great, incredible stories there. Also, we're on the road to 5,000 subscribers. Once we do, we'll have a live stream that will include special giveaways that you, the person who is watching or listening to this program right now, are going to be eligible to win. Also, the seasons are changing. We got hoodies, we got shirts, we got stickers you can add to your water bottles. We have coffee mugs, hats, and all kinds of wonderful pieces of swag. So treat yourself. Check out our Redbubble store. Everything is on sale right now. Link is in our social media bios and in the description down below of this episode of And I Quote. So make sure you check that out there and treat yourself. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, ring the bell to be notified of when the videos go up or they go live. Remember, life is better when supporting indie creators from all over the world. Take a look.
Strelin of Ulia is a cursed man, and cursed men are dangerous. He has traveled the known world seeking a way to lift his curse. So far, he has not found what he is looking for. When Trellin arrives in the city of Anshi, in the nation of Paraba, he meets a cold reception. The desert nation is unforgiving. Its people have proven untrustworthy, and the locals have no love for foreigners. Now, a wealthy stranger offers to lift Trellin's curse for a price, and he must make a choice. Seek a solution elsewhere, or risk imprisonment in the Tower of Ruach, a place from whence no man has ever escaped. The known world of Atera, the prisoner of Ruach Tower. Now available on Amazon in paperback and on Kindle.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now, it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasmafire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasmafire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
Good morning! Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.